So it says. And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Strategy Show. It is Tuesday, June 4th. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Matt Bellman. We are brought to you by Better. We have a 10-game slate ahead of us. And luckily for me today, I don't have to roster Kevin Gausman, who unsurprisingly sucked. The moment I had a lot of him, we all knew what was going to happen. It's 3 straight starters. It's, shit. Who the hell pitches for the Padres?
Darvish?
Yes. Darvish, Sale, and now Kevin Gausman. 3 straight days where my most exposed pitcher has absolutely destroyed me. Maybe today will be a little bit better because I'm a little bit flatter on pitching today, but we have all the time in the world to break this one down. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. You and I were talking about needing to do a show again soon. It happened quite quickly. Laughy taking the day off today. Everything is fine. Don't sweat it, people. But now it's me and you. What's good, man?
Nothing, man. Happy to be on here with you. Yeah, we kind of, as you mentioned, spoke this into existence. I'm pumped to talk some MLB with you.
I'm pumped to talk some MLB too. So because I'm a little bit behind the 8 ball when it comes to baseball coverage, considering I have dedicated the past few months of my life to owning the NBA. We're going to take this one game by game. We're going old school for the strategy show, and we are going to start it off. The New York Yankees, 4.5 run implied total, taking on the Minnesota Twins. Gil versus Ober. One of these guys is actually getting a ton of ownership. The most expensive pitcher on today's slate, 10,800 in this spot against the Twins. How do you feel about Luis Gil?
He's a fucking stud, man. I've been on him a ton recently. Like, the underlying numbers call for slight regression, but his K rate is so enormous that, like, it almost doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
He passes the eye test. He passes the underlying number test. He is, and again, I'm not sure it's going to last, right now pitching like one of the best pitchers in baseball, facing a Minnesota team that strikes out a lot against right-handed pitching. He's expensive, no doubt about it. Yeah. I don't think you have to roster him, but I think he looks great, man. And I do think he is my favorite pitcher on the slate if I could only choose one. How do you see it?
So I don't disagree with you. I have him projected better than anybody else on the slate. I think it's a really nice strikeout matchup. The price is stopping me from getting to a ton of him. So I do have 10%. I am under the field. I do think he looks great. He grades out well. 25% top 2 pitcher odds in our top pitchers tool. I have it personally at 27%. So I'm seeing it the exact same way. I just didn't get as much. I'm paying down a little bit more than I'm going all the way to the top. I do have some Imanaga more towards the field than I do have Heel, but I would not mind at all if I got to more. The strikeout stuff is insane. He's walking way too many people too. He's a bit of a wild card from that regard. And there's a lot of power in this Twins lineup in a park that plays up power. If he's just a little loose with that control and you start to get some base runners, that's where the power could start to become a problem in this park if he's going to be giving you some free base runners. But at the same time, he might just K 10 dudes.
You know who he's a lot like to me right now? And I know you haven't been following too much baseball so far this year, but you know MLB, Freddie Peralta.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Goes out there, mows down a ton of guys every once in a while. Walk, gong.
Yep.
And all of a sudden it's just like, oh, he's not catching his edges today. But yeah, look, every bit of this looks good. The matchup looks great. His strikeout stuff is great. I'm only just a little bit nervous about the park and the price tag.
Yeah, I get that. The price tag is a real sticking point just because it's not even that, like, I think he's too expensive. It's just that there's a lot of good pitchers on this slate and all of them are cheaper. So I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. So like George Kirby at 8,800 is a guy that I'm getting to quite a bit in this spot. And like to be able to save that extra $2,000 with comparable ownership, I just find it a lot easier to go to Kirby and get that savings in somewhere else. But I would not talk anybody out of going to Luis Heel. He looks really good. Do you have any interest in Bailey Ober?
Nah, I don't think it's the spot for Ober. I think he's a fine to good pitcher. Certainly he has his blow ups as we've seen a couple times this year, but I'm not in the business of picking on the Yankees with average to good right-handers right now.
Are you looking to go to either one of these teams in stacks? The Twins grade out pretty poorly, 15th in top stack, 17th in top value. The Yankees aren't much better, and they're incredibly expensive. They are the worst value stack of anybody today. Two guys in the 6Ks. You've got Stanton at 5K, lots and lots of 4K options. Do you expect to be getting to either one of these teams from a hitting perspective?
No, definitely not Minnesota. I respect Heel too much. And then New York, they're always in play, but it's like the Dodgers right now where they're just incredibly hard to roster. If you want to stack the Yankees like their top 5, you're going to have to spend down on both pitchers and use a shitty offense with them. So do I think they're an awful play? No, but it's just about what you have to concede to get there.
Yeah, the most I have of anybody in this game hitting wise, I've got 6% of a couple dudes on the Yankees. Volpe, Judge, Verdugo, Stanton, Austin Wells. I don't have a single share of Minnesota, which I don't get the sense anybody's going to find surprising. They look terrible. This is really just Luis Heel and not much else. Yeah,
I agree with you though. Like any one-offs or mini stacks you can get of Aaron Judge, etc. I'll take them always.
Oh yeah. I mean, in this, like I'll take any bit of those individual Yankees bats. I don't necessarily love them as a 5-man, but if it's just like, oh, I paid down and got 2 cheap pitchers and now I have a 5-man cheap stack with Soto and Judge. It's like, okay, well, we can move forward from there.
Yeah, totally with you.
Oh, this is not what I wanted to do. We're on to the Blue Jays and the Orioles, the thorn in my side from yesterday. I had a decent amount of the Reds, but I had 70% of Kevin Gausman, so I wasn't able to salvage anything because he died a pretty quick death, honestly. Bowden Francis going for the Toronto Blue Jays. Corbin Burns going for Baltimore. Burns in at 10K, third most expensive pitcher on today's slate. He's 9% owned. Bowden Francis pulling no ownership whatsoever. I got him in for 3 innings. We like him a little bit more as a value option. I don't see it as much, and he's not very good. So the question, I guess, comes to you with, how do you feel about Corbin Burns?
I'm fine with Burns. I don't really have a strong take on him. He's obviously a very good pitcher. He's not having the best year of his career, but he still has a 2.84 expected ERA. My biggest issue with him is the K rate. It's the lowest it's been since 2018. And even that number is spiked because of a game against Seattle a couple games ago. And we know Seattle strikes out a ton against anyone. So listen, I don't think Burns is a bad play. I don't want to pick on him with Toronto bats. I'm fine with it. I feel mediocre with it. How do you feel?
I don't have a single share. I think it's a lot easier to get to Heel or Imanaga. You've got Jack Flaherty, $800 cheaper than Burns, pulling twice as much ownership. I actually don't have any of him either, so it's really tough for me to get to Burns at 10K.
Whenever you get these like real good pitchers at low ownership, there's always a insert at low ownership, but that's all Burns is to me here.
We just have so much at the top. I mean, we have 4 separate guys around 25% plus Flaherty just shy of that at 20. We're not lost for good pitching at the top side right now. So it's very, not that he can't go out there and be the highest scorer of that group, but to me, he's very clearly, relative to salary, the 6th best option of those top 6 salary guys.
I hadn't looked at it like that, but I have no disagreements with it at all.
Okay. And then I don't think we have to talk about Bowden Francis here.
No, I'm not even sure. He's pitching today, but he might come in long relief. I know he was doing that earlier in the year. Nah, I mean, Baltimore is amazing against right-handers. No interest in Francis for me.
Jake DeWitt, I think I had 30% of Ryan Nelson yesterday, but once my boy Kev went to shit immediately, I pretty much stopped paying attention. So I don't even know how well he did. I can't even confirm that I had 30, but I'm pretty sure it was 30. All right, bats here. Going to be a lot harder to want to go to the Blue Jays bats. 18th in top stack, 18th in top value. They've got Burns on the opposite side. Even if Burns hasn't been the guy you want him to be from a DFS perspective, he's still a really talented pitcher. Baltimore, on the other hand, 5th in top stack. Now, they are expensive. 16th in top value, but this is a team that I think you can get to. Just so happens that I'm not. Do you like Baltimore?
Yeah, I like them. Again, I might be with you though, in that like I like them, but they're just outside for me. You know, I'm only playing a few lineups, and yeah, I think they look good, but so does Colorado. You know, so do the Reds, the Cubs, the Astros. Like, so there's a number of teams that look good here. If you told me your favorite team, or you think that Baltimore was, you know, the number 1 team probably outside of Cincinnati, I wouldn't argue with you. I think my biggest reservation with them tonight is just the ballpark. Really good hitting weather, like all over the country. And this is obviously playing in Toronto. So I'm good with Baltimore. I probably like them as my favorite side of this game over Burns. Yeah. It's just what you said. Like, what do you have to give up to get to Baltimore?
It's hard, man. So that's sort of my problem. I don't really have them. The most I have of any individual hitter on either side, it's everybody's just tied of 1 share. I don't have a second share of anybody on the Blue Jays as one-offs. I don't have a second share of anybody on Baltimore. I don't have Francis. I don't have Burns. This game is like a giant cross-off to me. I'm hoping for, you know, like 5-4 with no home run type shit.
Yeah, which honestly is probably the most likeliest outcome, like it is in every game.
Let us hope that that is the case. All right, 2 games down. That wasn't too bad. I'm slowly but surely reintegrating myself into the baseball space. Let's talk about the schedule for the rest of the day. This is very simple. MLB live before lock later tonight at 6 p.m. That's it. That's all we got today. There's not a lot going on in the sports world. Now that the NBA finals are about to get themselves started on Thursday, I believe we're getting down to the nitty-gritty of the NHL as well. Not a sport I follow, but I know that they are coming down to the line. So it's just going to be a lot of baseball coming up, and you will get the MLB strategy show. Now, don't get me wrong. We still have tons of other content. VODs on the Stochastic channel. VODs on the Odd Shopper channel if you're looking for some more sports betting information. All of that should be very easy for you guys to find. Just search for Stochastic or Odd Shopper on YouTube. We have plenty of content. Follow us on Twitter as well. That'll help out. We're about to get to a team that I actually have here. The Boston Red Sox have a quite poor implied total taken on the Atlanta Braves. This one is in Boston. Cutter Crawford on the hill for the Red Sox. Max Fried going for Atlanta. Let's start with Fried. 9K, call it 25% owned. I'm basically matching it. I'm a little bit higher on Fried than we're showing. We had 13% top 2 pitcher odds. I actually have it at 22%. There are an infinite amount of strikeouts in this projected Boston lineup. If Bobby Dalbec is in the lineup, that dude Ks more than anybody in the world. That is going to be fun to see. But the only guy that's in my current projected Red Sox lineup with a sub 22% projected K rate is Jamie Westbrook in the 9 hole. You can bury guys that don't strike out in the 9 hole all day. That's not going to matter to me at all. I like the idea of getting to Freedom, dead neutral to him. Do you like him?
I love Fried here. He might be my favorite pitcher on the slate. Everything you said. Boston is not good against left-handed pitching, and they've got a ton of injuries. Like, I don't love the ballpark. I'm sure the weather's hot in Boston, but you're dealing with that basically all over the slate. And while we've talked about there are a bunch of really good pitchers on this slate. I think you can poke slight holes in all of them. Heel is really good, but he's 10-8. So I think you can poke the least amount of holes in Fried. I'm a big fan anyways. Yeah, he might be my favorite pitcher on the slate. Honestly, sounds like we're on the same page here because it's either him or Kirby.
Yeah, Fried is my third most exposed guy. Kirby is essentially tied for first with Spaghetti down at 6,700. We'll get to that in a bit. That's my preferred pay down option. But I love the idea of getting to Fried. I would not care at all if I started getting to more of him. I really like this spot. By the way, 66 degrees at first pitch is the expectation in Boston. So they're really not getting the same sort of weather that we're seeing in other places. That's not all that amazing. We're dodging any sort of like 75 plus in Boston today. So that should help Fried out a little bit. Happy to get there. I think he looks good. Carter Crawford, on the other hand, not so much.
I'm still laughing about you calling it Spaghetti. It's so simple. I just hadn't even put that together yet. So I like that a lot. Carter Crawford's a no for me too.
Okay. Well, then let's talk about the team that is my third most exposed team right now, my Atlanta Braves. Now, we have them 5th top stack, 15th top value. I'm heavier on the Braves by a mile. 2nd in top stack, 10th in top value. I find them underrepresented, including Michael Harris, who might be my favorite bat on the slate in the leadoff spot at 4,400 on the road. That's just so many plate appearances in a decent enough run environment, lefty-righty matchup as well. So Harris is a guy I'm getting to a lot of, but I have a double-digit exposure to Riley, Ozuna, Olsen, Jared Kelenic. I've been getting to Atlanta a lot lately. They've been dog shit every time I take them. I get them, and Acuna gets hurt. I roster them, and a month plus ago, Strider gets hurt. I see Chris Sale get bombed. Anytime I'm getting to Atlanta, it's been awful, but I'm getting to Atlanta once again.
Yeah, I have no arguments with it. For me, I don't think they really look all that much different from Baltimore.
Yeah. Agreed.
So it's like, I'm not going to sit here and say like Atlanta is my top stack on the board, but they do look like one of the better ones, especially at the lack of ownership they're getting. I know that they've let a ton of people down recently and people have PSD on playing them, PTSD, excuse me. But I don't care. Like, for me, my biggest issue is not about Atlanta because I think they're in a great spot, good ballpark, all that. I think Carter Crawford's good. I don't think he's great, but I don't know yet if I want to go out of my way to pick on him when we've got some pretty crappy pitchers at the bottom. So I like the Braves. I could understand why they're, again, 2nd overall for you. They're somewhere between 2nd and 5th or 6th for me too.
And the rank is probably being a little bit more extreme. Like, I have them neck and neck with the Cubs. So like, if I reran my thing, they could just as easily be 3rd, and it wouldn't even be a crazy situation for me. It's 0.3 of a percentage point in top stack. So by all accounts, they are equal there. And yeah, they're Crawford 170 x ISO to lefties, 164 to righties. It's just meh across the board. I don't really have. It's not like I want to target against him. He's just like an average dude. He's 8,200. Even his price is like average for today. But it is Michael Harris in particular is the guy that I'm getting to a lot, assuming he's sitting in the leadoff spot. I just think that he's too cheap for this road environment. Do you like Boston at all on the opposite side? I can't imagine you do if you like Fried.
Nah, I don't. Too many other good spots to go to. So, and I will say this, like, yeah, I think Crawford's like average to good, but that's also why the Braves aren't getting ownership is because Crawford's not like a gas can. So it all goes together.
It does. Well, we're about to talk about a team that's got a lot going for them today. Chicago Cubs are hosting the Chicago White Sox. Massive run total for the Cubs. I got it at 5.6 with the White Sox at 3.4. Imanaga is going for the Cubs. Chris Flexen going for the White Sox. This is 2 very distinctly different pitching options. Imanaga is 28% owned. Chris Flexen is unowned. Let's start there. We are not going to be rostering Chris Flexen today, correct?
No, I'm out on Flexen.
All right. How in are you on Imanaga? I am in. I'm dead neutral to the field. Like I said, I have a little bit more of him than I do have Luis Gil. I don't see them as dramatically different. I think the odds of the Cubs getting a win here is probably what's separating me from getting to Imanaga over Luis Gil. They're just significantly more likely to win the game. But I think he looks absolutely amazing in this spot.
I think you like him more than I do here.
Okay.
Truth be told, just after going through this, and I know we haven't gone through all the games, I think I like that Kirby Freed range the best. I think Heel and Imanaga, especially for me, just a little bit too expensive. I get it. He's been fantastic this year outside that last start, but his underlying numbers do call for some regression, even though they're still good. Like he's got a 1 point whatever now ERA. His expected is around 3. So
Yeah.
again, I'm not interested in the White Sox against him. I just don't know if I want to pay full price for him here. You know, I know the spot is great against Chicago, but you also got winds blowing out. So I prefer Heel here. I don't think it's like drastic though. So you told me you liked Imanaga more. I wouldn't argue with you, but ultimately, I think I like that free Kirby range just significantly more anyways.
As do I. So, I mean, I have the same amount of Imanaga as I do Freed, but Kirby is the gold standard for me at the top, and that's helping. Imanaga has thrown 675 pitches to righties this year, just shy of an 18% swinging strike rate. Woof. That's nuts, man. 1 out of every 5 pitches thrown is a swinging strike.
That's crazy.
Nuts to think about. And look, there's so many strikeouts in this White Sox lineup. Their current projected lineup has 8 righties in it, so that plays right into those swinging strikes. The wind blowing out could end up being a little bit of a problem, and we may have some weather that we got to deal with in Chicago, but we're not going to dig into that until much later today when we have a much better idea of how those storms are moving. I do agree with you there, though. I don't have much interest in rostering White Sox against Imanaga. But we got to talk about the Cubs, who are the highest owned team on the slate, higher than the Reds today in Colorado. We have them second in top stack, first in top value. I had it third top stack, first top value. Either way, clearly a team that people want to get to. This is my big fade.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's just an ownership thing for me. Like I expect in the single entry, the 250 formats, whatever it is, for the chalk to be the Reds and the Cubs. The Cubs are just really easy to fit with the Reds. They're really easy to fit with good pitching. They've got the highest top value percentage on the board for any offense. People love picking on Chris Flexen. I like the Cubs. If they were under-owned here, I would like them a lot, but they're not. And on a however many game MLB slate this is not a team that I want to play in like smaller field type stuff.
Yeah, this is a team that I'm going to get away from. Not that I think they're a problem, but because everything looks great on paper. Chris Flexen stinks. The weather's great. The implied total is great. Everything you could want here for Chicago is there. This is just a spot where I'm going to get away from it from ownership. I am getting the Reds, so I'm taking like you kind of. I basically had to pick between one of the two. I wasn't going to fade them both. I am getting to the Reds. I'm not getting to all that much of the Cubs. I have 5%. We're projecting 15. So this one's a little scary because I have absolutely zero respect for Chris Flexen's ability to do anything of value here. 234 X ISO to righties over the past year and a half. That is about as bad as it gets. Under 10% swinging strike rate. He gets swinging strikes like half as frequently against righties as Imanaga does, which is crazy to think about.
That is nuts.
Do you have any individual Cubs bats that do stand out to you?
I mean,
Christopher Morel is somebody I'm getting a lot of.
Swanson at shortstop's like 3,500. The thing I'll say about the Cubs versus the Reds, I actually think this ownership holds. The Reds are really expensive, especially the guys you want. So people will own them, but like we don't have the Hunter Brown at 7K, Matt Waldron at 7K tonight. We've got Spaghetti, but like he doesn't look like a great option. He's just the best cheap option. So the Cubs are going to just be way too high owned.
I agree. That said, if you like them, like you're not crazy. You're getting yourself to the right thing, but you're going to have to be different elsewhere. You're going to want to find that like if you're going to play a Cubs stack, that could be a good spot to go to Corbin Burns. I don't have anything else here. I definitely don't want to talk about White Sox bats.
Yeah, I'm not interested in White Sox bats. If you were going to pick on Imanaga, last slate was the slate to do it.
The Rangers have a 3.9 run implied total. Tigers are at 4.1. Dane Dunning going for Texas. Jack Flaherty going for the Tigers. Dunning and Flaherty are both projected for 18% ownership. I am half the field on Dunning and don't have a single share of Jack Flaherty. Little scared of all of that because I do think both of those guys should be in that 10 to 15% ownership range. How do you feel about Dunning? How do you feel about Flaherty? Do you like them? Do you not like them? Do you like them both? This is a weird one for me. This is an interesting game.
Yeah, I'm actually right there with you. It's a weird one for me where I like them. I don't think I'm going to get to either of them, though. Flaherty, I don't hate the price, but I like the guys we've talked about more that are cheaper. And I do like Luis Heel more. And it's a tough matchup. Like, Texas has been not great against lefties, very, very good against right-handed pitching. I know Flaherty coming off one of his best ever starts last time out. I don't think he's a bad option. I mean, his 2.53 expected ERA is damn good. 34% K percentage. Like, he's been really, really good. So I wouldn't argue with anyone that went there. I just don't think I'm going to personally. And then Dunning he's a hard nut for me to crack, man. Like, I expect regression to come for him. Like, his 3.94 ERA is fine, but his 5.10 expected is not great. He just strikes out a lot of guys, or he has been this year, so he can make up for it. If you told me you like Dunning a lot here, I wouldn't fault you. If you told me you like the Tigers against Dunning, I wouldn't fault you.
So I barely have this game at all. I've got a couple Ranger stacks. I've got a couple Tiger stacks. I've got a little bit of Dunning. The only guy that I'm not getting to is Flaherty, but we've sort of talked about what's going on at the top of the pitching tier right now. The implied total in this game is rough. 8-run total in this spot is just makes neither one of the offenses actually stand out. Like, I think you can make a case for all four pieces of this: Dunning, Flaherty, Tigers bats, Rangers bats. And I think they all sort of look pretty similar. I'd say the Rangers bats probably look the worst just because Flaherty is good. But there's, if you're getting to Semi and Seager, Adolis Garcia, like, it's not like those guys are scrubs.
So I totally agree with you. I think, like, on paper, the Texas bats look like the worst of the four. But if you ask me, like, what the best overall unit of the four was, it would be Texas's offense.
Yeah. Because there's barely any power in this Tigers projected lineup. Riley Green, and that's about it. So, like, Dane Dunning doesn't really have those sort of threats in front of him. You could arrange the four pieces of this game in any order, and I wouldn't tell that person that they are right or wrong or whatever. It would just be like, yeah, that's what you want to go to today. Doesn't appear that I'm going to be grabbing any of it.
I think my biggest issue with Dunning is just the price tag. Like, give me Fried or Kirby in the same tier. I know he's cheaper, but not cheaper enough.
Anything else for the Rangers and Tigers that you would want to touch on? I feel the same way. So let's talk a little bit about better. Now, that is much better to talk about than that last game. You can double your first deposit up to $500 if you sign up for better using the link in the description or the one that Jordan will inevitably drop into chat. It's a pick'em site. You guys should be trying to squeeze as much money out of these pick'em sites as you can. Get that deposit bonus and play through it, and then figure out what you want to do. You could use Odds Shopper if you like better. We have a better optimizer where you can just load that up on Odds Shopper, click a few buttons, and it will build out the card for you with the best plays that exist. They cover NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, and more. If you've played it all on pick'em sites and you haven't signed up at better yet, you're just leaving money on the table. Take advantage now. Sign up using the link in the description or the one in chat. Legal age for gambling in most states is 21 or over. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Houston Astros, 4.7 run implied total, taking on the Cardinals. My man Spaghetti on the hill for the Stros. Andre Payante, because I'm going to continue to say it in weird ways as we move forward. I can't believe it's been a week since Laffy and I talked about him. He's going for the Cards. 20% ownership to my boy Spaghetti. None to Payante. Let's talk about Spaghettis, because he's in half my lineups right now.
Yeah, he just really looks like one of the only viable options under 7K. And we talked about the cheap Reds, or the expensive Reds, excuse me. There are other expensive bats all over the slate. Like, you can make a case for Mitch Spence. We talked
Yeah.
about Francis earlier, but like Arrigetti's the only one that like you actually feel some sort of confidence with. I don't feel that much confidence with him,
No.
but he's too cheap for his strikeout rate and everything else considered. So I get it. I don't feel too strongly one way or the other. I don't want to use him, but if I need to use him, I'm fine with it, if that makes sense.
22% K rate against lefties, 29.9% K rate so far against righties. Now he's given up a 180 X ISO to righties, 112 to lefties. Projected lineup for the Cardinals currently has 5 lefty bats in it. If they continue to maintain a pretty big lefty contingent, I think that's pretty good here for Arrigetti. Just because it seems like he has no problem giving up a little bit more power to right-handers. So let's keep those lefties in the lineup. It's not going to be fun to get through Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado, but the lefties won't be that bad outside of Burleson and Gorman. Bottom of that order, not all that scary in any way. I'm not worried about a 900-year-old Matt Carpenter any longer. He's guaranteed to homer now. But yeah, this is my preferred paydown option. He's currently in half of my stuff at 6,700. And that's interesting to me because he actually grades out really bad for me in comparison to where we have him. We have him 12% top 2 pitcher, 22% top 2 value. I have it at 6% top 2 pitcher. So I have half of those odds, and yet he's still showing up everywhere for me. So that makes me feel good because even if I'm pessimistic, much more optimistic on the stochastic stuff, and I'm still getting to him. So these are the spots where I usually feel pretty good. I like the salary savings here. He is my most exposed pitcher on the slate right now.
That's got to make you feel good with everything you just laid out.
Yeah, no complaints.
Yeah. I think it's not even about Arrigetti himself. It's about what he opens up that no other pitcher can do. So I get it.
Bats in this one. Now, the Astros rank significantly higher than the Cardinals do in terms of top stack. They're 6% odds of being that top stack. But the Cardinals are free. Paul Goldschmidt's 4K. Every other guy in their projected lineup right now is sub 4K. This is the number 2 value stack. So while Arrigetti is on the opposite side pulling some ownership, as a cheap stack, allowing you to pay up for like a really good 3-man and one of those other pay up options, I don't think the Cardinals are crazy to get to either.
Yeah, same. I don't really want to go out of my way for them.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. Like, you're paying up for pitching and you need a cheap mini stack, or, I mean, even a 5-man, I don't hate it. Nolan Gorman's way too cheap at 3,700 right now. Alec Burleson hitting second at whatever cheap price he's at. So I'm fine with it. They do look really, really good from a value perspective. And the nice thing about like the Cubs and Reds getting so much ownership is you really don't have to worry about ownership with any other team.
No. Yeah, I like that Goldschmidt, Gorman, Arenado trio. First base, second base, third base. It's a really fun mini stack to get to. Lets you pay up elsewhere. 4K, 3,700, 3,900. They're not even like cost problematic. It does take you out of getting to Arrigetti as a pay down option if you're going to be getting to that Cardinals piece, but that's fine. If you want to go to Frankie Montas or Mitch Spence, you can. So I like that savings in the heart of the order for the Cardinals. What do you want to do with Astros bats here?
I'm not overly excited about Houston bats. Like, I don't think Payante is good, but I don't think he's garbage. And potentially no Kyle Tucker tonight. Like, I don't care about one hitter hardly ever, but that's a big hitter in their lineup. So
sure,
without him, it'll make them easier to stack, but certainly not as exciting. I will say, Yordan Alvarez stands out at 5,100. Didn't have the best start to the year, but if you looked at his like Savant page, all red. I mean, he's the same Yordan Alvarez as ever. He's finally gotten going a little bit, and he's not cheap because he's 5,100, but he's too cheap considering the guys that are priced around him. Giancarlo Stanton, Jaron Duran. I mean, Ozuna, Spencer Steer's 1,000 more than him. Like, I like Alvarez quite a bit as a one-off.
I would not mind at all getting Yordan Alvarez in this spot. That dude can mash.
Yeah, that's all it is.
All right, Rockies, Reds, let's do it. We're in Coors, 5-run implied total for Colorado, 5.7 for the Reds. Ty Block going for the Colorado. Frankie Montas going for Cincinnati. Now, Ty Block is getting no ownership, and no one's going to be surprised. 6% coming into Frankie Montas. I've got 22. Am I crazy for wanting to go to Montas at 6K, rolling into Coors?
No, just because there aren't that many options under 7K, and there are expensive bats. So I definitely prefer Arrighetti, but he's not impervious to getting hit. So it's not crazy to think Montas just outscores him. Yeah, tough ballpark. We don't love using pitchers in cores, but the Rockies are still the Rockies, and Montas is 6K. So I like the Rockies side a lot at the ownership that they're expected to get, but
same.
No arguments with Montas at 6K just because of the layout of this slate.
Yeah, I think we're on the same. Like, I got 22% of Montas. His biggest issue is lefty power. 207 x ISO to lefties over the past year and a half. Current Rockies lineup has 3 lefties in it.
They got none of it.
Sorry, Charlie Blackmon, 145 projected ISO and steamer. That's not a power potential that I'm worried about any longer. Ryan McMahon, 177 projected ISO. That one's real. And then Jake Cave in the 9-hole at 150, but in the 9-hole. So I don't really care. There's not a lot of lefty power out there. And that's really the only problem for Montas. Now, is he a strikeout guy? No. But is this Rockies team any good? Also, no. I think he looks really good. And if people are not going to click on him because he's rolling into Colorado, I don't really care that he's in Colorado in this spot.
I get that. I care just in the sense of he's not a strikeout guy. So you're kind of playing with fire, putting balls in play here.
Absolutely.
But he's 6K. So like I'm with you just in the fact he's not getting ownership. It is still a really good matchup. Like the Rockies could be playing on the moon and their offense would still suck. So I'm with you. Like, especially it's just hard to stack the really expensive teams, some of which we've talked about. So these cheap pitchers are more than viable.
Yeah, I find it really interesting that the Rockies implied total in this spot today is still only 5 runs. Like 79 degrees in Colorado against Frankie Montas, and they're still only at 5. I think that's a testament to how bad Colorado really is. And I think that's really what's appealing to me. If we see that move at all, maybe that changes. If that Rockies line comes up, maybe I end up with a little bit less Montas. But the key takeaway for me here is that I'm not just getting Montas. The Colorado Rockies are my most exposed stack. I have both sides of it. So I want an extreme one way or the other. Every single bat in this Colorado Rockies projected lineup right now is sub 10% owned. They're the number 3 stack in our top stack tool. They're 10th in ownership. These guys are getting slept on, even if they are dog shit.
They're definitely getting slept on. It's kind of a typical story this year with Coors. And I don't think Montas is any good. So this is a good spot for him because, like you said, the only lefty you're worried about at all is Ryan McMahon. So I think there's just a lot of upside in both because Montas is so cheap and the Rockies are unowned against the not great pitcher in Coors. Man, starting out this show, I thought I was going to like the Rockies as my favorite stack on the board. And I still like them a lot because of their ownership. But I think I'm more on the Montas side. Like,
okay,
I don't know, man. This Rockies lineup just sucks and they're all righties and they're not even cheap. Like, they're expensive even. I mean, they're not 6K plus, but you can't just roster 2 really good pitchers and stack the Rockies and go on with your day. It's harder than that. Go ahead.
They have 5 guys in their projected lineup with a steamer WOBA projected at 294 or lower, including Brenton Doyle at 268. And it's not like it gets much better there because Sean Bouchard and Jake Cave are at 302 and 304. There's basically like not a real hitter anywhere to be found here outside of like Blackmon and Ryan McMahon both being average.
Yeah. So again, like I get the Rockies here. The top stack tool likes them a lot. They're under-owned. There's a lot of opportunity cost though, and basically any offense you roster. And I don't know, man. I just don't know if I really want to take on the Rockies tonight with the Braves and the Orioles and other teams we're about to get to. I think I'm more on Team Montas after you broke it down. Not going to lie.
I wouldn't be surprised if this Rockies ownership comes up a bit. 4.3% aggregate. They're 10th right now. Like if they end up at 6th, which is like, you know, it's going up, but it doesn't turn into an extreme. Just that alone might be enough that it limits the amount of Colorado that I'm getting to. On the other hand, Cincinnati is the second highest owned team. They are number one in top stack. They're a decent enough value. This is probably the consensus number one team in terms of like high floor. You feel the best about Cincinnati against Colorado and tie block. Like, obviously the Cubs look good, but this is the spot you're usually looking for in cores. And you're getting the ownership. Double digits to Fairchild, De La Cruz, my boy Candelario, and Tyler Stevenson. I'm still getting to Cincinnati. I'm over the field. I'm eating a lot of the chalk, especially on the guys that I already mentioned. It's not like I'm taking a giant stand on Cincinnati, but I am a bit over the field. This is an incredible, like, tie block's bad.
Yeah, he's like the worst Rockies pitcher. And that's saying a lot because none of them are really good. But he's like the one you want to pick on the most to me. Yeah, I think the only thing bad about Cincinnati here is the ownership because they're going to get it. But they're expensive enough where they're not going to be like crazy chalk, especially with the Cubs being so cheap. So I think Cincinnati is very live in any size field, playing them basically in any way. Because if you 5-man stack like their top 5 hitters, again, I haven't done the pricing, but you're going to have to get weird somewhere. So a lot of people aren't going to want to do that. Then they've got cheaper guys scattered throughout their order. Yeah, there's not much not to like about Cincy here. Like, I kind of look at it like this. If we were doing like a drafters draft for this MLB slate, I would have to imagine like 5 of the Reds hitters would go within the first 10 offensive picks, something like that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you're based on this, like where you're seeing the ownership. Fairchild, De La Cruz, Candelario, Steer, even Stevenson, like those guys are going to fly off the board in a situation like that because this is as good of a run environment as you're going to be able to find. They look great.
It's hard to argue.
Like we said before, like if you're playing the Reds, that might be a decent spot to go to a Corbin Burns instead of one of the other pay up options if you have enough salary to do so.
100% agree. And like for me, if I'm playing the Reds like in a single entry, I probably don't want to play them with the Cubs. Right. That said, though, like that might be foolish. Like, again, I'm not going to play that, but ownership in MLB never gets so big where you really have to worry about, individual lineups. No. It's just for me, like if you use the Reds and the Cubs in single entry, like, and those teams score a bunch of runs, if you don't have the right pieces, you probably won't even cash. So it's like,
yeah,
damned if you do, damned if you don't type of thing.
Yeah, at that point, you want to think about not having like Fried plus Kirby or
definitely
Kirby plus Spaghetti in that spot. Like that's where you're going to want to get Mitch Spence. That's where you're going to want to get to Corbin Burns. That's where you're going to want to get to somebody different.
Yeah, I look at it like, and this happened to me, and this is a big reason why I try to avoid like real big chalk in MLB. I remember a couple Sundays ago, the Mariners were playing Corbin Burns, and they were crazy popular. I used some Seattle, but I didn't have like one of the guys. I can't remember, Ty France or whatever. So I was barely outside the cash with the Seattle stack. That shit stings.
It's brutal. It's the worst, man.
The worst.
It's the absolute worst. Anything else you want to touch on here in course?
No, it's almost like the most we can talk about, but we don't need to talk about it at all,
Yeah. Angels Padres. This is a coin flip game. Patrick Sandoval on the hill for the Angels. Adam Mazur going for the Pods. No ownership at all coming into Mazur. I don't really see that path. Sandoval's not really getting anything. If it wasn't for how good the Padres are and how bad this matchup is, I'd be interested in Patrick Sandoval here. I think he's underrepresented if you just don't pay attention to anything. But there are 0 strikeouts in this San Diego lineup. It's obviously filled with talented hitters. This is one of the better offenses on today's slate. I'm not really getting to Sandoval. I think he's just kind of, I think it's a tough sell given San Diego on the opposite side.
Yeah, same. It's not only that they're really good, they also just don't strike out against left-handed pitching. So yeah. I'm out on Sandoval. I just don't really see the need to get there.
And then I can't imagine you're in on Adam Mazur.
No, he is way too expensive for the unknown.
Padres are 7th in aggregate ownership. The Angels are 12th. So, in and around 4 to 5% overall. I'm kind of like in the middle on both of these teams. I have some of the Angels, but not a lot. I have a small amount of the Padres, but not a lot. I'm having a hard time like hitching my wagon to anything here. If I got to anything, it would probably be the Angels side. Not that I find them to be a very good baseball team. Do you expect to get to anything here?
I don't. I would like the Angels or I would like them more, I should say, if Mazur, however you pronounce it, is or was a lefty. He's not, though. Angels have pretty big splits. They're a lot better against left-handed pitching, at least right now with the current lineup they're running out. And San Diego, I'm fine with like their good hitters. I would have no arguments with Tatis, Machado. I'm sure you'll get a cheap Solano in there, but probably more one-offs and mini stacks. I think they just like fall by the wayside for me. Just they look fine, but I probably won't get there.
Yeah, I got 2 shares of Donovan Solano. It's the most I have of anybody from the Padres. I got a little bit more.
It is a sneaky ballpark upgrade for them. Sorry.
It is. It is. There's a little bit more pop in this spot. But Angels Park plays up power to lefties a little bit more, and I'm expecting to see a little bit more righties from San Diego since they're taking on Sandoval. So I don't know if they're going to be able to actualize it today in the same way that they might be if there was a different pitcher on the hill.
Yeah, real good point. I think the only lefty you might see is Cronenworth.
Yeah. I don't really have much else here. This is kind of a weird game. You know, this is it's just like two middle of the pack offenses for today, 2 lower than the middle of the pack pitching options. Kind of just this is another cross off game for me.
Yeah, same.
All righty, folks. One last thing that we want to touch on before we get out of here. I don't want you to forget about the fact that we're just dominating best ball in terms of handing out something that everyone could want, and it costs you absolutely nothing. We have a free NFL best ball package at Stokastic. We have player projections and rankings that will cover you on Underdog, DraftKings, and Drafters. Matt Gajewski is putting in the work here. This man lives and breathes the NFL, and he is dedicating all of that time to putting together these NFL best ball projections and rankings for all the sites that you would normally play best ball contests for. And again, it costs you nothing. We want you to sign up at Stokastic. That is totally free. That's all you have to do. Make a free account at Stokastic, and you will have access to our NFL best ball projections and rankings. It doesn't get any easier than getting to a free thing that you might want. It's that easy. All right, we're getting to my favorite pitcher here. Favorite real pitcher. The A's have a 3.3 run implied total today. Lowest on the slate. Mariners 4.2. Mitch Spence on the hill for Oakland. George Kirby on the hill for Seattle. Kirby's 8,800. He is 26% owned. Now, we have Kirby 13% top 2 pitcher, 8 top value. I have him 28% top 2 pitcher. This Oakland A's offense isn't good. The park is absolutely a benefit to George Kirby. No doubt about that part. Kirby is an actual talented pitcher. 25% K rate to lefties, 21 to righties over the past year and a half. Does give up a little bit of power to lefties. That's going to help to be in Oakland. Doesn't really give up much to righties, and righty power dies in Oakland. I think Kirby is the easiest guy to get to because he's 8,800 and he's got a matchup against the A's, and those boys like to strike out except for the top of the order. I assume you're looking at it the same way. This is a Kirby show.
Oh, yeah. It's not surprising he gives up a little bit of power to lefties considering he never throws any balls. So
yeah,
you can get to him with, the Houston lefties or whatever. Oakland doesn't even have anyone I'd be interested in as a one-off. So with Kirby, normally I like him a lot more at home. All these Seattle pitchers are just better at home. But when you're talking about going to Oakland, like, I don't really care. Such a good ballpark, great matchup. He's way too cheap, all things considered. I like him a lot.
Yeah, we just if he gives up a homer to Seth Brown or Blade or even like Soderstrom or something like that, I'm just going to cross my fingers and hope that there's nobody on base for it. That's really all that there is. I'm going to hope that he doesn't have it. George Kirby generally doesn't walk anybody. Free base runners is not something that Kirby is usually given up. If we can keep the homers, if they happen to solo joints, I think you could live with it. The strikeouts should be there in this spot. When all is said and done, I hope that George Kirby is my most exposed pitcher because obviously my boy Spaghettis is going to be a value guy that I'm getting to a lot. But if we're talking about guys that I want to pay up for, the actual talent, I think Kirby's the best thing you can get to.
Same. My really only problem or potential issue with Kirby is I think his ownership will get steamed. Again, maybe not in large field, but in like the higher dollar single entry stuff. Even Matt Waldron last night came in at like 40%. This spot stands out, his price tag, the matchup. So I'm going to play him anyways. Like pitcher ownership doesn't bother me as much as hitter ownership. It's just much more projectable.
Yep.
But I won't be surprised if he's like 30% owned in some of the higher dollar stuff at all, because he's such a good play.
I wouldn't be shocked at all if that comes up over 30 by the time we get later in the day. A's bats are 20th in top stack for both me and the Stochastic Sims. They're 15th in ownership. Are you anticipating ever having the Oakland A's today?
No, never.
Okay. Do you want to get to the Seattle bats against Mitch Spence?
That's an interesting one. I wish Spence were getting more ownership. If he were, I'd be more interested.
Yeah.
Really, really hard for me to get there on this big of a slate with so many good offensive spots. Like, I just don't see how many times Seattle in Oakland, wins this slate. Now, their offense is good enough where I wouldn't like cross them out of 150s, but in limited lineups, I don't think I'll get to Seattle. How about you?
I barely have any. 80 degrees in Oakland tonight is something.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes me want to get to Seattle more. It doesn't like bring me off of Kirby or anything. Look, they're 5% owned. That's 7th. And I think that's probably about right. I'm a little shy of that number. I have a small amount of Seattle, but nothing crazy. To me, this is George Kirby, and I don't really care if I get anything else.
Yeah, same. Kind of goes without saying that like a Julio Rodriguez or like a Rodriguez Crawford mini stack.
Yeah.
And the only thing I'll say about the 5% ownership, like this is one where when it actually plays out, I could see some of the Seattle ownership just going to Colorado or the Cubs or the Reds. Like, I don't think they're going to be high enough owned for it to matter if Seattle is like your cup of tea tonight.
The final game for today's slate. Make sure you're hitting that like button, guys. We got 245 people in here, 57 likes. For those of you that haven't hit the like button yet, do you guys think that we can get it up over 100? I think that'd be pretty cool. 43 of you need to hit that thumbs up. It would help us out a ton. Remember, I just told you guys about free best ball ranking. You reward me with a thumbs up. Diamondbacks and Giants coin flip game. 4.5 run implied total for both guys. Blake Walston going for Arizona. Kyle Harrison for the Giants. Walston and Harrison are both 1% owned. And that's exactly what they should be. I don't have a single share, and I would prefer to not roster either pitcher. Do you like either one of them?
No, definitely not. I would play Walston over Harrison, but that's about it.
It doesn't appear that I would play either one of them. They both grade out quite poorly. And then we look at the offenses. The Giants are 3rd in ownership. The Diamondbacks are 5th. We have the Diamondbacks 10th in top stack, 9th in top value, over-owned. We have the Giants 7th in top stack, 4th in top value, properly-ish owned. I actually have a little bit of the Giants. I'm neutral to the field. And I have a little bit of the Diamondbacks. I'm neutral to the field. I don't think that anything looks good here. This is a park that doesn't really give up a lot of power. Maybe it's just a pitching thing. I'm surprised that I'm neutral to the field on both of these teams. I don't know what I like.
I'm surprised they're picking up ownership. I just wouldn't have expected that. That said, I do like the offenses here. I don't love them, but I like them, especially Arizona. I don't think Harrison is all that good. His underlying numbers speak to that.
Yeah.
Arizona's lineup is set up to destroy left-handed pitching. They've had a lot of struggles against righties. They've been very good against lefties. So there's that. I'm just surprised at the ownership. And I feel the same about the Giants. Like, I don't think they look great, but I do think they look good, pretty good considering their price tags. Man, and I know that this is one where like I go back and forth because my point holds that like outside of the Reds and Cubs, you don't really need to worry about ownership on any other team. Yeah. Saying that though, doesn't mean that like every other team is going to be under-owned. Like we pretty clearly show the Giants and Diamondbacks is over-owned. So not exactly sure what I'm going to do with this game yet. I'm kind of with you. Just, I'm not sure yet. How about you?
I think they're just like it's the perfect hitting environment for filler. Like, I think I'm just going to end up with a 2-man or 3-man or one-offs of both of these teams, just filling in around the Braves, the Rockies, and the Reds. I think that's how it's going to build out for me. Not enough where I look at it and it's just like, I'm going to have a bunch of 5-mans of these guys, but there are enough bats and enough talent. Like the Diamondback side has enough pop and quality bats at the top where I'm not going to be surprised. And then in the core of the order, the Giants, same sort of story. The only downside for this one is just simply that Arizona's park just crushes power.
Yeah, that's kind of why I'm surprised the ownership is there. I guess it's just a price thing. Again, like if we didn't have cores on the slate, I would be very worried about the ownership coming here, but we do. So, I think that again, while they are slightly over-owned, I ultimately don't think I won't play them because of ownership. I just might not play them because there's other teams that look better.
All right, let's sum it up. Who are your favorite stacks at 11:56 a.m.?
Got to be the Reds number one, especially not getting the highest ownership on the slate. I'm going to go the Orioles 2. And I'm going to go with you. I'm going to go with Braves 3. I'm sure you have them higher, but I do like the Braves a lot.
Rockies 1, Reds 2, Braves 3. Those are the 3 most exposed stacks that I have. Favorite pitching?
Definitely Kirby, Fried, and then I'm going to say a tie for third between Heel and Arrighetti. One priced all the way up, one not. So that's how I see it.
I've got 5 pitchers where I'm pretty heavily exposed. My top tier is Kirby and Arrighetti. That's a pay up-ish and a pay down. And then Imanaga, Fried, and Montas. Montas is sort of my sleeper for today. You're on live before lock later tonight with Greg, I'm assuming?
I am not. I think it's Eric.
Oh, okay. Well, then never mind. You guys won't hear from us at all. Now I'm really glad I did game by game here, since you're not going to have to go through it again later. You'll have MLB live before lock later tonight at 6 o'clock, taking you up to 7:05. NBA coming back on Thursday. You got anything else you want to tell the people before we get out of here?
No, just good to be back doing a show with you.
It was fun, man. Shout out to Better for being the sponsor. Shout out to Jordan for being the producer. And shout out to Laffy for not wanting to work today. Enjoy this slate, everybody. We'll have some fun. I'll see you guys in the chat for live before lock later tonight. Good luck, everybody. See you later.